This is Marcus Whitney's audio universe.
Like, you gotta do the work. You gotta show up and just do the work.
Happy Friday. What's good? Welcome to another episode of Marcus Whitney Live. It has been an incredible and long week, and I can't think of a better way to end it than catching up with my lifelong friend. I've known this guy, I mean, geez, it's ridiculous. 7th grade. And we've been basically friends since the beginning. And we were friends around a particular passion. We had lots of things that we love, but we were friends around a particular passion. And I happen to have the incredible fortune of having a friend who I didn't just love watching wrestling with, but one day got to watch on TV in one of the most incredible promotions in the history of the business, ECW. So I'm super excited to catch up with him today and talk about it. So welcoming to the show, my longtime friend, Joel Gertner. Joel, what's up, brother?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm great, man. I'm great. Good to have you on the show, bro. So look, let's kind of jump in. First of all, you know, I know your backstory, but I actually, like, you know, we went to college and, you know, we kind of separated a little bit. And then the next thing I know, like, you're actually in this crazy promotion, ECW, and not like in a small role, in a really important role, as an announcer, as a mouthpiece, as a manager of one of the greatest tag teams of all time, the Dudley Boys. Man, you know, how the heck did that happen for you?
So yeah, slowly, just it kind of snowballed. I started getting into wrestling in high school. We knew each other, and I was maybe junior year-ish, maybe around my 16th birthday. I found a wrestling school that I had read about in a newsletter. And it was near enough to home. It was on the Lower East Side in like the lobby level of one of the project buildings. And it was just a good place to kind of meet people. And, you know, it was just a ring to get used to and bump around in. And, you know, there's a monthly kind of recital show where donations are accepted. And you keep meeting people. You know, you've got pros that are coming by. And back in the day, you know, even if people were already making a little bit of money in the business, they would still jump on one of these shows on the odd Saturday night just to get in there and hone their craft. And it's, you know, it's that kind of performance artist vibe. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I got into it, and just, you know, one thing kept leading to another, and meeting this person and working this show, and eventually got to the point where in ECW, I was in college at the time, and I just kind of asked Paul Heyman, who was running it. I just basically went up to him, told him, you know, what kind of stuff I was doing, and told him that I'd been following his career, admired his work. We had a mutual friend, so I dropped a name, but just anything, you know, it was just a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of the other, just to keep him interested, because I figured if I could keep him interested for 10 seconds, and then the next 10 seconds, all of a sudden, if I could get to 30 or 40 seconds, I might as well ask him for a job, because, you know what I mean? It's tough to keep in front of somebody for an ever-growing period of time.
Yeah.
And I finally got to the 40 seconds where it might seem awkward to keep, like, just telling him all these things about myself or himself that, you know, he might already know. So it actually was outside an elevator. So it would take me 20 years later to find out what an elevator pitch was. But this actually was an elevator pitch without me knowing what an elevator pitch was. And I just asked I said, you know, your regular Philadelphia crew is not going to be in Middletown, New York. I go to Cornell. I could be a lot easier. Geographically speaking, it's probably not even all that much easier. But I just put it out there that I'd be willing to do it. And I said, if you don't have anybody yet for that date, if it wouldn't be taking a job away from somebody else, if you wouldn't mind giving me a try, I'd really appreciate it. And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, you want it? And I was like, well, yeah. He's like, you got it. Be there by 5. That's it. 5 led to like 5 years.
So, I mean, I think the thing that I just want to understand a little bit better is, you know, when you say Paul Heyman, I mean, we're talking about Paulie Dangerously, right? I mean, so this is a guy when we were young that we would watch. You know, we would watch him on the UHF channels in New York. You know, when I would go down to Virginia for the summers, I got to watch it. You know, on TBS Superstation and all that kind of stuff. But like, we would watch him as kids. So like, was it working out in that Lower East Side gym? Like, did that sort of break the mysticism around it all and give you maybe the comfort or the confidence to approach somebody who was, you know, a star, you know, in the business at such a young age? Or like what was that, man? I'm just at a young age, it was a lot of confidence to walk up to him and to ask for that opportunity.
Yeah, somewhat equal parts yes, and somewhat equal parts you'll never be ready. You know what I mean? Just like with anything else in life, like, you know, I mean, in some cases, yes, but, you know, it probably didn't hurt that I tried to be a student of the game, and I was reading, you know, the Wrestling Observer newsletter and other trade publications. So I'd watched so much of it and studied so much of it that, you know, knowing that it was a business and just kind of, you know, knowing some of the logistics that's behind the glamour of it, you know, there's that. And there's, you know, but at the end of the day, like you say, I mean, he was particularly and specifically, he was one of my indirect mentors.
Yeah.
He's somebody who I would pattern my own work after his. So it does make it interesting that he's the person that I asked for the job. It was, you know what, a little bit of it was out of body. A little bit of it was, you know, here you are and you've already started this conversation. And like I say, now it's gone for a little bit of time, and you just, you know, you're either going to, you know, look like, you know, somebody who took 45 seconds of his time and you wanted this job that you didn't ask for and you walked off and you regretted it for the rest. I think I've always been wired. I would rather, if I'm going to have a regret, you know, try, and I, of course, don't regret.
Yeah.
But if you must, right? If there are a handful of regrets in your life that you can list, I'd rather mine be for something that I've done versus for something that I haven't done.
Yeah.
I could never live with myself. I would have rather asked for the job and got it, which I did. I would have rather asked for the job and not got it.
Yeah.
Than not ask, and now it's 25 years later, and look back and say, what if, you know? So it was somewhat out of body. I mean, it was somewhat something took over, and I just, once the conversation started, I knew I had to kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, I had to kind of finish it.
So you asked, you get the job. And do you have any idea that, all business stuff aside, because for anybody who has studied sort of the history of promotions, everyone knows there was, you know, on the business side, on the money side, ECW had some challenges and ultimately ended up being, you know, acquired by WWE, and there was a whole transition there. But from an art perspective, from the performance, from the unique novel product that was put out, it's, you know, for its short life in the span of all the different promotions that have happened in America, it's near the top, right? It's among one of the most memorable, impactful, important promotions in the history of the business. Did you have any idea that ask was going to put you in, legitimately in the history books, you know, with a promotion that was going to be talked about forever, in a position where you were going to be managing one of the greatest, undeniably, one of the greatest tag team acts of all time? Still.
I didn't. I mean, even, you know, in asking for a job, the job that I was asking for was ring announcer. Would you, not to, you know, deprecate, not to, you know, but I mean, you know, I wound up being, you know, timekeeper and ring announcer, and then foreign language ring announcer, and then heel ring announcer, and then manager.
Yeah.
And then eventually color commentator on TNM. And it's not everybody in the business that can say that they kind of with the microphone. They took it all the way upward from timekeeper and ring announcer, part-time ring announcer, to co-host of the show. But that's not, I'm not saying that to put myself over. I'm saying that in answer to your question is that when you say, did I have any idea? It's not like there was the TNN show at the time and I was asking to be co-host. It's not like I was saying, I've done some managing the indies, which I did. So can I manage your top tag team? It wasn't that at all. I was asking for an entry level position. So by definition, even superficially, no, absolutely not. Could I have ever thought that it would get to the level that it did?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's an amazing. I just think it's amazing. So now, like, let's fast forward to today, right? Let's fast forward to today. It was a very, very different world when you were in the business, right? The iPhone is only 13 years old, right? And so that's a really good way. The iPhone and Twitter, quite frankly, they both kind of hit the main stage in 2007. So very, very different world. I remember when TNA was going on, this was, in the early 2000s, you came down and stayed with me for a little while and you were doing some work with TNA. It's a completely different world now, right? Like the storylines don't end on television. They then go into social media, and on social media, it's like the people are their real selves, right? And so now we have this world where everybody is their own individual enterprise, right? And you certainly are one of those people. Can you talk a little bit about what that how that shift hit you? As somebody who became a celebrity in the wrestling space on television in the pre-internet era, right? And now in this post-internet era are leveraging all of these legacy YouTube videos and tapes and, the WWE Network where, we can watch some of your greatest clips and stuff like that. How do you leverage all that stuff that happened to be archived and is now available online to build out your own personal enterprise? How do you think about that and go about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we were watching as kids in the 80s, every wrestler was a can of beans. Every wrestler, just like their action figure, was a product. And the WWF, let's say, was the brand.
Yeah, that's right.
And now with people having their own personal social media, every wrestler is a brand. Some of them even refer to themselves as their name brand as their Twitter handle.
Right.
It's really interesting, man. I remember, if you want to talk about me being in Nashville for TNA in 2002,
yeah,
I remember before podcasts and before YouTube channels and 18 years ago, before the iPhone and Twitter, I remember just doing like World Series updates with this webmaster who, I don't know which one of us was more brilliant than the other in conceptualizing this thing because it was so new for 2002. Maybe you'll remember who that was, Marcus Whitney. I don't know. But no, man, we tried a lot of different, look, I got on Prodigy in 1989.
I remember that.
It was my first exposure to the internet. It was my dad had some American Express bonus points, like $50 worth of bonus points. Had no idea what this thing was, but it looked interesting. It was a way to read USA Today and the Wall Street Journal and whatever digitally on your computer as it came out. And he said, you know what? And it had email,
right?
Which at first was free. And then they tried to jump it to 25 cents per email after 30 a month. And I'm sure it went back to being free. But Prodigy was just kind of like, also ran with AOL and CompuServe. And it was, in that bucket there. And so I started with that, over 30 years ago. And between exposure to that, where I met a lot of people in wrestling, between working with you in 2002 on what was a prototype for so many things that have come by since then, just every step along the way, joining Twitter in 2010,
Mm-hmm.
joining Facebook around that time. Before that, being on MySpace around 2006 when my MXW promotion was running. All these different things, and email, and just, I started texting along the way, and it becomes ways that you can, even when you're texting, you can say to yourself, and so much content has, maybe I could turn this into content. And now
Yeah.
you're watching a TV show or a movie. We saw a movie, my wife and I, where the whole movie, the whole hour and a half is involved in some way with the computer. It's a girl who's missing, and the name of it was Searching, if
Okay.
you haven't seen it. And it's about a father whose daughter is now missing, and the whole movie is almost seconds. It was amazing. But before I get too lost in the weeds, yeah, everything, there's a technological component now to everything.
Yeah.
There just is. And it's up to you to maximize, that's where your audience is. If you neglect the audience, it used to be people were amazed that the news cycle went 24/7.
Yeah.
Following that, the relevancy cycle has gone 24/7.
Totally.
Whenever it is your moment to be, listen, you don't have to always do it when you're in the shower, on the toilet, when you're eating, but whenever it is that you've defined that it is your moment to be relevant, you need to just be at the top of your game and maximize and optimize as much as possible. And thank God for things like Twitter. And, because this is a way to blast out to tens of thousands of people, to thousands of people. This is a way to just get your message out there and keep your brand in their mind space.
I completely agree. I just did an unbelievable session yesterday, live stream on this YouTube channel called The Future, with no E at the end. And it was someone who has this guy named, his name's Chris, and he has built out this unbelievable brand around educating 1 billion people. He's like set this, this North Star. He's going to educate 1 billion people, right?
Wow.
And dude, he's on his way. You know what I mean? It's just like he's doing these incredible live streams with people. He's got this community of people who come in every week or probably multiple times a week to check out these videos. And it's just like just came up with the idea, you know what I mean? And just like the continual execution and constant improvement around it. And now he's got over 900,000 followers on YouTube. You know what I mean? And his platform was a huge boom for me. And it's like you said, like I had to be at the top of my game for that presentation. Like I needed to go in and deliver at the level that like his platform deserved. You know what I mean? And like just think about it, like to me, it's like more valuable than TV. Because these people can like comment, they can immediately like connect with me online, they can LinkedIn message me. It's just unbelievable how much things have changed in favor of individuals who understand it and are willing to put in the hustle on it. And that's one thing I could say for you, is you've got your podcast together, you've got your YouTube, you're very active on Twitter, you're and in ways that both evolve your brand, but also in ways that keep your brand relevant to what people know you for, such as commenting on Raw when it's happening, you know what I mean? Or things like that. Like I watch you from a reverse engineering perspective. I'm like always just like studying, okay, like how is this person doing it? So I studied like, okay, how is Joel doing this? And I just think, it's like when Kamala passed away, may rest in peace, the fact that you have that archived conversation with him, all of a sudden, like, and I'm not trying to, you get my point here. I'm just saying people just think, oh, that's just a conversation. No, it's documenting history. You know what I'm saying? It's capturing something that you may not understand how valuable it is today, but when people go, and we all go, when people go and you start looking like, okay, I want to hear from this person, you have those conversations, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've also gotten into, the finance world a little bit. And I was kind of surprised to hear about that. I want to just hear about that because it's interesting. It's hit my radar a couple of different times now. I'm obviously in venture capital, but I'm not that much in the public markets. And I've had several people recently talk to me about options trading. And so when you told me you had really started to dedicate some time to it, it perked my ears up. So I want to just hear, like, A, why did you start looking at options trading? Was it just because coronavirus is here and you had more time on your hands at home? Or, is this something that you'd always had an interest in from a stock perspective and you just wanted to maybe take more seriously?
Yeah, I had always dabbled. I've been on and off throughout my life in stocks. Started learning about it when I was a teenager. My dad invested. At school, we had the Wall Street Investment Club. I was a member of that. And then as a young adult, during the ECW days, found a stock that did really well, started trading, and then took a few years off. Got back into it in 2010.
Okay.
Because I'd heard that Apple was going to come out with this new form factor of device.
iPad, right?
It wasn't a phone. Yeah. It wasn't a phone.
Yeah.
It wasn't a desktop or laptop. It was they went back and they were calling it a tablet. They were calling it a slate.
Yeah.
At one point they were thinking about calling it the iSlate. They called it the iPad. I was in from the moment that I heard that it was going to be, notebook size, so that it was smaller than a laptop. I knew it was going to be a big deal, regardless of what you call it. And then people tried to be clever. And then when they called it the iPad, people were like, oh, it sounds like it's a feminine hygiene product. And it sounds like it's, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it sounds like,
but you can hear people. You can hear people saying that, right? You know what I mean?
People who probably wish they would have got into Apple 3
Exactly.
years earlier.
Exactly.
And now they're bulls because they're just trying to either get back in or they're trying to bring the price down and talk their own book,
Yes.
The silliest nonsense, And none of that. I was like, I'm all in. I'm sold. And so we've done pretty well in Apple for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, goodness gracious, 10 years, man. Wow. Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. And then now more recently, very heavily entertainment weighted, our portfolio. I'm starting to get into some more kind of bio and pharma type stuff.
Okay.
I've got a couple of speculative plays. I've got COVID plays, one for a vaccine and one for airport testing, Inovio and XSPA, which is actually Express Check now that they're doing the COVID testing.
Okay.
But yeah, and options, like you said, I've taught myself buying calls and buying puts. And there was one day where I thought that Zoom, which we're speaking over now,
right?
But it had gone up so rapidly and was so high for back in April, and I just had a vibe that it was time for a little bit of air to come out of the bubble or the balloon, and I bought some puts. It was just on a Friday, the same day that they were expiring, which can be a little bit risky.
That's tight.
But I just had a feel it was a day play, and I was buying them at like 170 or whatever, and I would have been happy if they just went to 168 or something like I thought they might.
Yeah.
Just as long as they dropped, I'd be, in the money for it. And an hour before expiration at 3:00 in the afternoon, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, yeah, this Zoom kind of thing seems nice. I think we're going to dip our feet into it and do our own. And Zoom went from when it was 12 noon that day, I got it. It was around 170 or 175. On the news that Facebook wanted to get involved, it went to 160.
Wow.
And I did pretty well.
Wow.
And I've given a lot of that back to the casino, so to speak, because I've wanted it to be, again, regret what you do, not regret what you don't do.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to willy-nilly lose it all, because if I wanted to lose it all, like we were saying, I could go on my YouTube channel and light it all on fire and at least get followers or something, right? I could do something productive with it. But I don't want to lose it, but I wanted it to be less of a nest egg.
Yeah.
And more of a catalyst.
Yeah.
Not that I thought it would
that.
ever be easy to have a play like that again. I wanted to treat it worst case scenario like a lottery win, best case scenario like a roulette win.
Yeah.
But even as a roulette win, it's not the kind of thing that's going to happen like a coin flip.
Yep.
It's not the kind of thing that's going to happen every month. But I wanted to put it to what I thought at the time was best use. And like I say, in doing so in the last few weeks or months, I've given a good bit of it back. But when you learn lessons on your own back, and when you do, better than learning, better than teaching, when you go out and work and you actively pursue and you do, that's really the only way to get a lesson under your belt.
Could not agree more. So I think maybe the final one I want to ask is, you had such an incredible experience at a young age, and we're still young, right? Like at the end of the day, we're still young. So,
I'll take your word for it.
Oh, trust me, we're young, man. We're young, brother.
Well, you're 3 months younger than me, so you have a right to say that.
Yeah, okay. We're young, man. we're not babies anymore, but we're still young. We're old enough to know better, I guess. Yeah,
we're not stuck.
That's right.
We're not stuck in the corner sucking thumbs.
That's right. What would you say you've learned through that process of having that incredible experience, and then that experience came to an end, and you look ahead and you've got like so much more life to live and so much more to sort of figure out, and it's not everything you'd ever dreamed of, but certainly like it was a big dream accomplished, right? So for people who aren't necessarily having that same experience where they've had this incredible early experience, but maybe where they feel like somehow because of their age, some opportunity is no longer there and they have to sort of look to the future. What would you say you've learned through this experience? Because I feel like you've had it in a more real way than a lot of people have. A lot of people talk about it, but you've had it. You've had this real experience. What would you say you've learned, from that is valuable, that you would, that you tell yourself and that you would, want to tell somebody else?
So at the risk of being a self-hypocrite, because there were times where I've needed to give myself this same pep talk and could have listened a lot better to my own words, and there are times where I've needed this pep talk from others. Anything is possible. And it's possible at any time. True enough that time only moves in one direction, but time is also one metric, and it's codependent with other metrics. Your time versus the developments in your career, your time versus your personal finances, your time versus technology as it marches on, your time versus health, your time versus where you are mentally and emotionally. So there's time which is only going to move in one direction, but all these other things are a lot more, perhaps totally, within your control and under your grasp. Anything is possible, and it's possible at any given time. I wanted the big break that I got so badly that because I wanted it that badly, I thought there was no way it would happen. It happened. And along the way, whether I've put my eye on different balls whether I've looked towards different things, whether I haven't pursued as frequently, as much, with the right people, in the right way. At the end of the day, if it was possible then, anything. Sometimes I wonder, Marcus, whether the lecherous, perverted, sexually demented, quintessential Studmuffin that I portrayed in my early 20s, sometimes I honestly think that he will next be of best use to the wrestling universe if I'm blessed enough when I'm in my 80s.
Wow.
Because it'll be funny again.
Right.
I think that the quintessential Studmuffin as an Uncle Lech type character might have more meat on the bone, so to speak, 40 years from now than he does today. Now, that's not going to be me saying that I couldn't be relevant today in that role or another, but it's just that you think about time. And when I think about time, I say, how much might that gimmick mean to the wrestling world decades from now as a throwback? How much better will I be able to trade 20 years from now when I'm 65 and some people unfortunately aren't still able even yet to retire? How much more wisdom will I have in 20 years than I have today, if what I have today is simply based on what I started laying the groundwork for or wished I had when I was a baby 20 years ago, you know? So you look to the future, you look to the past, and you realize that time only moves in one direction, but you have to try to use it in your favor. And anything is possible.
Brother, that was more than I could have asked for, man. That was perfect. And if you're having a problem listening to that from yourself, you're just going to play this back. I'm going to put this podcast up later today, man. You should listen to yourself. Those are incredible, incredible words. Y'all, this is a very close friend of mine, but he's also an incredible person. And let's bump his following count up. The Quintessential Studmuffin, at Quintessential Studmuffin on Instagram, at Studmuffin Says on Twitter. Go find him on YouTube. Go follow my man Joel Gertner. He's hilarious and also full of inspiration and wisdom. The book, Create and Orchestrate, out in stores now. Go grab a copy if you haven't already. Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, the podcast. Grab it wherever you subscribe to and listen to podcasts. And of course, you can find me online everywhere at Marcus Whitney. That is it. We're out for the week. We're going to have a great weekend. We're going to relax. We're going to take a breather. I just want to thank everybody for rocking with me. Thanks for tuning in today, and I will see you back on Monday with another episode. Until then, let's build a new normal, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe.